stop whatever you are doing right now, because what I am about to tell you in the next few minutes could completely change the way you see your life, your struggles, and your so-called failures. This is not a motivational speech. This is not a pep talk. This is a revelation, a leak. Someone on the other side of your destiny just made a mistake, and the plan they had to keep you small, to keep you confused, to keep you circling the same draining cycles year after year, that plan has been exposed. And I need you to hear this, not just in your ears, but in the deepest chamber of your soul. Because the moment you understand what has been done against you, the moment you see the full architecture of the sabotage, you will never look at your pain the same way again. You will never look at your delays the same way again. You will never look at the people who doubted you, the doors that closed on you, the dreams that seemed to slip through your fingers. You will never see any of it the same way again. So lean in, get quiet, and let this land where it is meant to land, because this message found you for a reason, and that reason is bigger than you currently know. Part or northeast, you were northeast ver ordinary. Let's start at the very beginning, because we have to establish something before we go any further. You were never ordinary. I know you have been told otherwise. I know the world handed you a very specific story about who you are and what you are capable of. Maybe it was a teacher who looked past you. Maybe it was a parent who never quite saw the fire burning inside you. Maybe it was a group of peers who made you feel like too much or not enough simultaneously, somehow, which is its own kind of cruelty. But I need you to hear this clearly. The story you were handed was not the truth. It was a script written by people who were themselves operating from a script handed to them by people who were also living in the dark. Generational confusion passed down as wisdom. But underneath all of that noise, underneath all of the conditioning and the labels and the limitations, there has always been something in you that refused to fully die. A flicker, a pull, a knowing that whispers in the quiet moments between all the chaos of your daily life. That whisper is not your imagination. It is your original nature speaking. And your original nature has never forgotten what it came here to do. You were coded before birth with a specific frequency, a specific assignment, a specific thread of purpose that runs through the entire fabric of your existence. The question was never whether you were chosen. The question was always whether you would choose yourself back. Part to the architect courtyard of the sabotage. Now we get into the heart of it. Now we look at the plan that was designed specifically to stop you. And I want you to understand this is not about victimhood. This is about clarity. Because when you can see the mechanism, you can dismantle it. When you understand the system, you stop being unconsciously enslaved by it. So let us look at the architecture together. The first layer of the sabotage is what I call the fog of smallness. This is the invisible cloud of low expectation, quiet dismissal, and subtle belittlement that descends on people like you from very early in life. People like you, and by that I mean people who carry an unusual amount of light. They generate an unconscious reaction in those around them. It is not always malicious. Sometimes it is simply the reaction of people who have suppressed their own light for so long that your brightness feels threatening. So they dampen it. They use words like realistic and practical, and you need to be more grounded. They reward your conformity and punish your expansion. And over time, if you are not careful, you internalize their ceiling as your own. You start policing yourself. You start shrinking before anyone even asks you to. The fog of smallness is insidious precisely because it does not feel like attack. It feels like common sense. It feels like love, even, but it is the first weapon deployed against the chosen one, and it is devastatingly effective unless you see it for what it is. Part 3: The Sand Weapon. Distraccord Iron by design. The second layer of the sabotage is more sophisticated, and frankly, it is more dangerous in the modern age. I call it distraction by design. Once the fog of smallness is established, once you have been sufficiently convinced that your dreams are too big and your calling is a delusion, the next phase is to keep you perpetually busy with things that feel important but are ultimately empty. You are given an endless scroll. You are given manufactured drama to consume. You are given comparison engines disguised as social platforms, where the entire architecture is designed to make you feel behind, lesser, not enough, and then to sell you the solution to the inadequacy they just manufactured. You are given 1,000 small pleasures that keep you satiated but never satisfied, full but never nourished, stimulated but never awakened. And here is the genius of this layer. It does not feel like oppression. It feels like freedom. You chose to open the app. You chose to watch the next episode. You chose to engage with the drama. And because you chose it, you cannot call it sabotage except that the choice was architected. The options were curated. The environment was designed. The chosen one sitting in the fog of distraction does not feel chosen. They feel average. They feel like everyone else. They feel like maybe all those whispers about purpose and calling were just romantic fantasies. And maybe it is time to just settle down and be sensible. That is the moment the sabotage reaches its peak. That settling, that resignation is the kill shot, and the plan was always to get you there. Part for the third weapon, UNTRFEITMMUNITI. But they did not stop there, because the architects of your limitation understood something crucial about human beings. We are wired for belonging. We cannot thrive in isolation. We need mirrors, other human beings, who reflect back to us our highest potential and our deepest truth. So the third weapon deployed against the chosen one is what I call counterfeit community. This is the strategic placement of people in your life who look like your tribe but function as your ceiling. They are not necessarily bad people. Many of them genuinely care about you, but they are operating from a frequency of survival, of smallness, of this is just how life is. And when you are embedded in a community like that, when your primary social circle is made up of people who have already made peace with their limitations, their energy becomes your atmosphere. You breathe in resignation daily. You marinate in low expectation, and slowly, imperceptibly, your own vibration begins to drop to match the environment. This is not weakness. This is physics. You cannot hold a high frequency in a low frequency environment without extraordinary conscious effort. And the plan counted on you not knowing this. The plan counted on you assuming that the people around you were simply your people when in reality, the configuration was a carefully crafted echo chamber of limitation designed to ensure you never found the others who were operating at your actual level. Because when chosen ones find each other, when they recognize each other and begin to conspire in the direction of their shared greatness, that is when the entire plan falls apart. That is what they were always trying to prevent. Part 5, the fourth weapon, WEPONIZED timing. Let us talk about the fourth weapon, because this one may be the most painful one for many of you watching this. I call it weaponized timing. You have had experiences, I know you have, where everything seemed to align, where the path felt clear, the energy felt right, the dream felt within reach, and then something happened. A relationship ended and took your stability with it. A financial crisis materialized out of nowhere and redirected all your energy into survival. A health challenge arrived and consumed months or years of your life. A betrayal broke your momentum just when you were finally building it. The timing felt wrong, but it did not feel random. And you were right, it was not random. Because one of the most effective ways to neutralize the chosen one is to attack them precisely at the moment of their activation, not before. They are not a threat. The attack comes right as you are beginning to remember who you are, right as you are beginning to step into your power, right as you are beginning to align with your purpose. That is when the disruption arrives, and it is designed to do two things. First, to knock you off course practically, materially, circumstantially, and second, and this is the more important target, to implant a story. The story that says, you see, every time you try to rise, something knocks you down. Maybe you are not meant for this. Maybe this is a sign. Maybe you should stop. The delay was a weapon. The disruption was a weapon. And the story that gets built around the delay, that is the real weapon. Because the material setback you can recover from, but the story you tell yourself about the setback, that can imprison you for decades. Part 6, RAGNIZING, your own signature. Now I want to shift the energy here, because we have looked at the darkness long enough. It is time to look at the light specifically, the light that is yours. Because part of what makes the chosen one recognizable, part of what makes you a target for the kind of resistance we have been discrediting, is that you carry a very specific signature, a very specific set of qualities that, when fully activated, make you genuinely dangerous to every system that profits from human smallness. So let me describe your signature to you, and as I do, I want you to notice the places where this lands with a resonance that goes beyond intellectual agreement. First, you feel things more deeply than most people around you. What registers as a mild inconvenience for others lands on you as a profound disruption. What reads as ordinary beauty to most people moves you to tears or to silence. This depth of feeling is not weakness. It is not emotional instability. It is your antenna. It is the same sensitivity that will allow you to read rooms that others cannot read, to sense truth in situations where others see only surfaces, to access levels of empathy and creative intelligence that require this very capacity for deep feeling. Your sensitivity is your superpower, and the world spent decades calling it your problem. Second, you have always known, on some level, that you are here for something specific, not in an arrogant way. In fact, you have often been confused or even disturbed by this knowing, because it did not come with a map. You just knew. You have always known, and no amount of dismissal from the outside world has ever been fully able to extinguish that flame of knowing. That knowing is not a delusion. That knowing is a transmission from your highest self, confirming your assignment. Part 7: The Sacred Wound. Here is something that the spiritual teachers, who speak in only comfortable terms, will not tell you. The chosen one is always wounded, not despite their calling because of it. The wound is part of the design, not inflicted by the divine as punishment, but experienced as the necessary furnace through which a certain kind of consciousness is forged. You cannot develop the depth of compassion required for your assignment without having suffered. You cannot develop the resilience required for your mission without having been broken and rebuilt. You cannot develop the wisdom required for your role without having navigated the specific darkness you have been through. The question is not whether the wound is real, it is. The question is not whether the wound was painful, it was. The question is, are you going to let the wound define you, or are you going to let it refine you? Because there is a version of your story where everything that happened to you is just suffering, where the betrayals are just betrayals, the losses are just losses, the years of confusion are just wasted time. And there is another version of your story, the true version, where every single one of those experiences was curriculum, where the people who wounded you were unwitting teachers, where the periods of breakdown were actually periods of restructuring, where what looked like destruction was actually deconstruction, the universe dismantling an old version of you that could not carry what you are being prepared to carry. The sacred wound is the chosen one's initiation, and the moment you stop trying to pretend it did not happen, or to hide it out of shame, and instead you let it become the source of your testimony, that is when it transforms from a wound into a weapon of light. Part 8: Why They Fear Your Washington KNING. Let me be direct with you now about something that might feel uncomfortable at first but will liberate you once it settles. The forces, whether you call them energetic, systemic, spiritual, or simply psychological and sociological, that have been invested in keeping you small, are not random. They are not arbitrary, and they are specifically calibrated to you because of what happens when you fully wake up, when the chosen one fully awakens, when they move past the fog and the distraction and the counterfeit community and the weaponized timing and the sacred wound. They become something that no system of control can contain. They become a living demonstration of what is possible. They become a transmission, and transmissions are contagious. When one person in a community, in a family, in a generation fully steps into their power and begins to live from their original nature, something shifts for everyone around them. Not just inspired shifted, like a tuning fork that causes other tuning forks in proximity to vibrate at the same frequency. Your awakening does not just free you. It gives permission to everyone in your field to consider their own liberation. It cracks open the collective agreement that smallness is the only safe option. It becomes a living, breathing argument against the story they told all of you. And that is exactly what they were trying to prevent. Not just your freedom, the ripple of your freedom. The revolution that starts not with weapons or protests, but with one person, in one moment, finally choosing to fully become who they were always meant to be. That is the thing that dismantles the plan. That is the thing they were always trying to stop. Part 9 Northeast, the signs you are chosen. For those of you who are still not sure whether this applies to you, whether you are truly one of the people this message is meant for, let me give you some signs. Not to create an elite or a hierarchy. There is no hierarchy among the awakened, but because the plan I described earlier specifically targets certain types of people, and if you are one of them, you deserve to know it. Sign 1. You have always felt different, even when you desperately wanted to fit in. Not just different in circumstance, different in frequency, like you were tuned to a station that most people around you were not receiving. Sign 2. You have experienced repeated cycles of breakthrough followed by breakdown. Just when things start to accelerate, something arrives to destabilize you. The pattern is too consistent to be coincidence once you see it for what it is. Sign 3. You have gifts that feel almost embarrassing in their intensity, creativity, intuition, perception, healing ability, the capacity to move people with your words or your presence, but you have never quite been able to fully own them or build your life around them because some part of you still does not feel worthy of them. Sign 4. You have been surrounded throughout your life by people who needed your light but could not hold space for your growth. You have given more than you received in relationship after relationship, and while you have grown from those dynamics, you have also been subtly conditioned to believe that your role is to give and not to receive. Sign 5. And this one is the most important. You are watching this right now. You found this video? That is not nothing. The algorithm does not account for destiny, but destiny accounts for the algorithm. Part 10 The Turning Point. Every chosen one's story has a turning point, a moment sometimes dramatic, sometimes quiet, where something shifts irreversibly, where you step across a threshold you cannot step back across. And I want to suggest to you that this moment right now, reading these words could be that turning point for you. Not because of anything I said, I am just a voice, but because something in you called this message into your experience. Something in you is ready in a way that you might not have been ready last year, or last month, or even last week. There is a readiness in you right now that is different from any readiness you have felt before. It is quieter. It is less desperate. It does not need external validation to believe in itself. It simply knows, and that knowing, that quiet, unshakable knowing, is the turning point. It is the moment where you stop asking for permission to be who you are. It is the moment where you stop apologizing for your dreams. It is the moment where you look at every obstacle, every setback, every person who doubted you, and every system that was designed to contain you, and you say, with absolute calm, "Thank you for the training. I am ready now," because the turning point is not found in a circumstance. It is not found in a relationship changing, or a financial breakthrough arriving, or the perfect set of conditions finally aligning. The turning point is found in a decision made in the interior, below the level of thought, in the chamber where your soul lives. A decision to stop being a spectator in your own story and to take your place as the protagonist you were always meant to be. Part 11. Reclaiming your power. After the turning point comes the reclamation. And I want to talk about what that actually looks like, because too many spiritual messages stop at the inspiring declaration and never walk you into the practical reality of what it means to reclaim your power after years, sometimes decades, of operating below your true frequency. Reclaiming your power begins with a radical act of honesty. Not the kind of honesty that is brutal and self-punishing. That is not honesty. That is another form of self-sabotage, wearing the costume of accountability. I am talking about clear, compassionate, unflinching honesty about where you are, who you have been, what has been driving your choices, and what needs to change, because the chosen one, who has been operating in sabotage mode, who has internalized the limitation, who has marinated in the counterfeit community, who has built their identity around the sacred womb, that person has made accommodations, deals with the darkness, agreements with smallness, and those agreements need to be consciously revoked, not with drama, not with a public announcement, quietly, internally, in the privacy of your own soul. You revoke the agreement that says you are too much. You revoke the agreement that says you do not deserve the level of love and abundance that your soul actually requires. You revoke the agreement that says your dreams are impractical fantasies. You revoke the agreement that says safety lies in smallness. You revoke every agreement that was signed under duress, under confusion, under the influence of other people's limitations and fears. And in their place, you install a new architecture, one that reflects your actual truth. Part 12. The Northeast W Architect Courtyard. What does the new architecture look like? It begins with clarity of identity. You are not your wounds. You are not your history. You are not the sum of what has been done to you or what you have failed to do. You are a soul with a specific assignment, housed in a human body, living in a specific moment in history that called for exactly the version of you that you are. The new architecture is built on this foundation. I am who I am, and who I am is enough, and who I am is needed. Not needed in the sense of being used, needed in the sense of being relevant, of having a place, of carrying something that the world actually requires. From this foundation, you build your practices, not the practices of the spiritual materialist, who collects tools and rituals and techniques in the same way they once collected material possessions, still trying to fix something, still trying to earn something, still operating from a belief that they are fundamentally broken, but the practices of the chosen one, who is simply maintaining their frequency, protecting their clarity, returning again and again to the truth that the noise of the world is perpetually trying to drown out. Meditation not as escape but as calibration. Movement not as punishment but as celebration. Community not as distraction but as amplification. Creation not as performance but as prayer. These are the pillars of the new architecture, and when you build on them consistently, not perfectly, but consistently, something begins to happen in your life that cannot be explained by conventional cause and effect. Doors open that were sealed. Connections arrive that were impossible. Resources materialize that had no logical path to you. This is not magic. This is resonance. This is what happens when the chosen one stops broadcasting the frequency of their limitation and begins broadcasting the frequency of their truth. Part 13, the or Northeast S who will me for you. I would be doing you a disservice if I painted only the triumphant picture without also preparing you for what comes with the awakening, because here is something that nobody tells you. As you rise, the resistance will intensify before it subsides, not because you are doing something wrong, but because you are doing something right. When you begin to vibrate at a higher frequency, could things happen in your environment? First, certain relationships, people, situations, habits, environments will begin to feel increasingly intolerable. The dissonance will become impossible to ignore, and some of those people and situations will leave your life. Some of them you will have to consciously release. This part hurts, even when you know it is right. The loss is real. Honor the grief. Do not let anyone rush you past it in the name of spiritual advancement. But the second thing that happens is more insidious. Some of the people around you will not leave. Some of them will stay and increase their efforts to pull you back down to the frequency where they are comfortable. Not always consciously, usually not consciously, but the dynamic is real. The subtle undermining, the sudden surge of drama in their lives that requires your attention. The jokes about how you have changed, the gentle suggestions that you are getting too big for your boots, the quiet withdrawal of warmth when you decline to make yourself smaller for their comfort. These are the ones who will come for you as you rise, and your job is not to fight them, not to resent them, not to publicly call them out. Your job is to remain anchored in your own truth so firmly that their pull cannot find enough purchase to drag you back. Compassion for them, clarity for yourself. That is the equation. Part 14, your Northeast Age of Light. I want to tell you something about your lineage, not your genetic lineage, though that carries its own wisdom and its own wounds. I am talking about your spiritual lineage, your lineage of light, because you did not arrive at this moment alone. You were not the first in your line to carry this frequency. Before you, there were others in your bloodline, in your soul group, in the broader collective of awakened human beings throughout history who carried the same essential assignment. Some of them succeeded in fully embodying it. Many of them did not. Many of them fell to the same sabotage plan that has been operating against you. They got lost in the fog, consumed by the distraction, isolated by the counterfeit community, broken by the weaponized timing, and they lived their lives below their potential, carrying the ache of an unlived destiny. You feel that ache too. I know you do. That ache is not only yours, it is ancestral. You are not just trying to live your own life at its highest level. You are trying to complete something that was started long before you were born. You are the culmination of a lineage of light that has been trying to break through for generations. Every ancestor who almost made it, who got close and got knocked back, their unrealized potential is encoded in you. Their hope lies in your DNA. Their prayers are the wind at your back. When you choose to rise, you are not just choosing for yourself. You are choosing for all of them. You are completing the arc that they began, and in completing it, you liberate them as much as you liberate yourself. This is the weight of the calling, and it is also the extraordinary privilege of it. Part 15: The Gift of the Resistance. Now I want to reframe something that we discussed earlier in this message. We talked about the resistance, the fog, the distraction, the counterfeit community, the weaponized timing. We talked about it as sabotage, and it is, but it is also, from another angle, the greatest gift you have ever received. Because here is the truth. You are not who you are despite what you have been through. You are who you are because of it. Every layer of resistance that was placed in your path served as a forge. Every moment of confusion that forced you inward built the capacity for self-knowledge that is now your greatest asset. Every relationship that wounded you taught you something about the nature of love and your own patterns within it that you could not have learned any other way. Every door that closed directed you toward a door that was actually meant for you, even if the redirect took years and felt like pure loss in the moment. The resistance did not only try to stop you, it also shaped you. It carved you into the specific configuration required for your assignment. A diamond is just carbon that has been through unimaginable pressure. You are not less than who you were born to be because of what you have survived. You are more refined, more clear, more powerful, more real. The sabotage plan that was designed to keep you small has, with exquisite irony, produced the exact version of you that is most capable of dismantling everything the plan was built to protect. They tried to break you into smallness, and they built a giant instead. That is the gift of the resistance. And when you can see it, truly see it, gratitude replaces bitterness. Power replaces victimhood. And the story of your life transforms from a tragedy into an epic. Part 16: The Moment of Full Accord IVATAON. So what does full activation look like? What does it feel like to be the chosen one who has seen through the sabotage, reclaimed their power, honored their wound, and is now moving from their authentic assignment? It does not look like perfection. Let me be very clear about that, because the sabotage plan has one final layer that I have not yet mentioned, and it is this: the myth of the perfect awakening. The idea that when you truly step into your power, Everything will be effortless. The anxiety will dissolve. The doubts will vanish. The path will be obvious and smooth. The right people will appear. The resources will flow. And you will feel constantly elevated and clear. This is a trap, because the moment that reality, which is messy and contradictory and often deeply uncomfortable even for the most awake among us, fails to match that fantasy, you conclude that you have not arrived yet, that you are not ready yet, that some further preparation is required before you can truly begin. And so you wait, you keep preparing, you keep clearing, you keep working on yourself, and in the waiting, the mission goes unlived. Full activation does not feel like arrival. It feels like commitment in the face of uncertainty. It feels like showing up for your assignment on the days when every part of you wants to hide. It feels like choosing your truth over your fear, over and over again, not because it becomes easy, but because the alternative, the half-lived life, the unlived mission, the slow grief of an unlived destiny is no longer acceptable to you. Full activation is not a stake you reach, it is a choice you make every single day for the rest of your life.